Sometimes songs take us down the road we don't want to go on, right? So I love that we started with that because what can happen? Our topic is the 7 habits of highly effective teens becoming highly effective people. And I know in the summertime, that would be the time that we would get away, go somewhere, go see our grandparents. Maybe as hormones started kicking in, we were falling in love too. Had a boyfriend, and then by the time we go back to school, that wasn't our boyfriend no more. So we think about richer living. That's what I opened up in prayer. And that is not richness. You know, blues is kind of the opposite of richness. It's as if there's not enough. And songs are fun, but we want to get in the habit of knowing the opposite of songs sometimes too. So as I look at the title of what I read yesterday, it said, "Neglect not the gift that is thee." And what that adjective means to me is happiness. You know, we talked about what adjective we want to have. I want you to pick yours. What is the habit you're going to have? And it's not going to be the blues. The habit of abundant happiness begins within us. It actually begins with some sort of peace because in the summertime, I do like the fact that the pollen is over. I do like spring, but the pollen, that comes with the spring, that's bluesy, right? And then the summer comes and it's all vibrant and green and lush and hot. And when it's that hot, we actually have to get into an inventive mode too. So when we were children, when it was hot, what did we do? Get in the fire hydrant if we were in the city, get in the lake if we were in the country, and find a shade tree. If we were in the city or the country, we'd find a tree. But what I want us to do to know that why the habits mean so much to me, because when I was growing up, there were a lot of words that were used, and God was one of them. And I saw how they used the word God. It almost gave you the blues. Because all the things that I liked, I was headed to the other place. So that wasn't happy. So as I looked at Ernest Holmes, who was introduced to me almost the same time as the 7 Habits, 1999 was when I became a facilitator of the 7 Habits, and 1999 was when I started going to the Atlanta Church of Religious Science with Kennedy Schultz and the Science of Mind. And the 7 Habits and the 7 Steps of Spiritual Mind Treatment, 7 days a week, I had hit the jackpot. 7 times 7 times 7. And you know, when you go to Las Vegas, that's where I got ordained. So what stays in, doesn't stay in Vegas. But whatever that line they got, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. That's not true. It comes with you. So I actually didn't realize becoming ordained in 2015 that I had actually pulled the slot for the jackpot. Because we always think it's in this big abundance. When we're kids, we're looking at life through the eyes of our family, through the eyes of our minister in church, our teachers. All of these people are showing us what life is. But what we forget, that this coming together conversion told me, that it's in everything. It's not in one thing. Ernest Holmes says it's the thing itself. So instead of the word God, it became it. And I think I knew it little too, but they wanted me to say this word and they wanted me to say that word. And as I started traveling, the word changed. It would be Allah, it would be Buddha, it would be Yahweh, it would be all these words. But Ernest Holmes fixed it for me. It's like, it's it. It's the trees, it's the moon, it's the sun, it's Yahweh, it's Buddha, it's Jesus, it's God, it's you, it's me. And when we're growing up, we're not taught to be that individual. Although they say the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, they want us to follow somebody else. So as a teenager, We've got a lot going on in our minds, a lot going on in our worlds, and we're trying to figure it out. So as I look at Psalm 19:7, it says, "The law of the Lord is perfect." And back to the language, do you notice that the word Lord and law is almost the same? So when we get mixed up in the language, it's up to us as older teenagers to find the language that works for us. Because if we're getting kind of bent out of shape about something, guess whose fault it is? Not our parents, not our minister, not our husband, not our children. It's us. And so far as our thought is in accord with the perfect law, it will accomplish nothing. It will accomplish everything, and nothing can hinder it. A false fact is neither a person, place, or thing. It uncovers that, and it changes the consciousness to know that false conditions will no longer appear. So when we were told to be afraid, be very afraid, hell was the word that came up in the language of the church that I attended, which scared the crap out of me because I didn't know what I needed to do not to go there. And what we learned to do, we've been singing about, talking about, praying about, and that's knowing that the law, God, Yahweh, is the how, the H-O-W. G-O-D equals H-O-W. Or, if you don't like that word, because it sends chills through your spine, L-A-W, the law, the one power, the source, is still how. People do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their future. And that's from F.M. Alexander. So when I started IBM in 1994, I had no idea that by 1999 I would be into a subject matter that would last me the rest of my life. Because IBM is about tech and computers and new age and innovation. But guess what life is every day? Invention, creativity, new age. We have never lived one moment before now the same. Every moment that we live from this second on is different. So if we can indoctrinate, if for lack of a better word, if we can instill, if we can happy our children, our teens into the power of now, that whatever is happening now, guess what? That's temporary, even if you're happy. If you're sad, guess what? That's temporary. If you don't understand, guess what? That's temporary. Because all of the power is in the now. How is that moment now? So as I look at the fact that we all struggle, I can't name one great person in the Bible that didn't. I'd like for you to pick one out, and you can tell me after service what great being that we know did not have some kind of struggle before they became great. Moses and Noah kind of stand out for me because we just passed the Easter season, and I had a turtle that I got for my birthday in October that I released already to the universe. But I was trying to give him away, right? Because he was one of these little turtles. And I said, some mom would want this adventure for their kid, and I could not give that turtle away. So I brought it home, and my grandkids came over. My birthday was the 11th of October, and I got the turtle the 9th. So they came over the 11th, and they said, Grandmommy, you got a turtle? And I said, yeah, you want him? No. I'm like, why? He says, he's too much work, and they were right. So he didn't have a name or anything. I'm like, if he's this much work, let's see what happens. I could not give this turtle away. I said, so if you last 40 days, I'm going to get you a bigger tank. Well, Noah lasted 40 days. That's how he got his name, Noah. So since Noah lasted 40 days, I got him a bigger tank. And then he was messy. He was very messy. So as he was growing, I was trying to figure out, what am I going to do with this turtle? I'm in a condo. And they say turtles live a long time. And I looked it up. Turtles can live 100 years. So I'm like, okay, this is not happening. So what are we going to do? I still couldn't give this turtle away. So for me to live life fully, each day is important. And I had a friend that made a transition, and I'm going to read a song at the end of our service that stays with me because of him. So as I'm honoring him, and he passed away April 13th, and one of the places that he lived in his life was Myrtle Beach. And I had not been to Myrtle Beach, and I love the water. So as I'm looking at Noah getting bigger, I said, guess what? As I celebrate my friend's life and times, I'm taking Noah to the beach. And I think I'm going to let Noah loose at the beach. Well, I had never been to Myrtle Beach before, right? So most of the beaches I go to have this coastline and rockiness, so I'm thinking Noah's going to be able to get out of the water. And I get to the coastline of Myrtle Beach, and it's all sand and water. And I'm looking at Noah, he's not that big. And I'm like, if I put Noah in there, he's going to drown and die. So I ended up having to find Noah a little pond to put him in. But I say all that to say that we can get an idea. And something can seem so big or so small or so easy. But as you're doing it, it unfolds. Noah's name came because it unfolded. He lasted more than 40 days. And as Noah was getting bigger, the release was, my friend's life has now changed. He had transitioned into another place in time. His physical being isn't here, but he was with me more than ever. So as I looked at the ocean, and I'm like, I wouldn't just put Noah out there in the ocean. I would put him in a place that would help him learn habits to still live in the wild. Well, that's what the law does with us. That's what God does. It's not going to fling us into the ocean if we're only this big. It's going to give the path, the wherewithal. I was the instrument in Noah's life. There is always an instrument in someone's life. Our godparents are our instruments. Our parents can be our instruments. Our ministers can be our instruments. But that's all they are. They're instruments. They're not going to be there forever. And if we're learning our own habits, then we have to be the change. The experience with the turtle was more of an affirmation than anything, because what that 40 days did remind me to pray too, to stay in prayer. So if something gets harder, take that 40 days if you need it. And we are the change in our lives. There's a song called Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson. And if we see things in adults that we didn't like or we didn't understand, and we're still doing them in our 60s and 70s and 80s, we're not the change. The only way we can be effective change agents is to have healthy habits. The habits are: be proactive. That's the very first habit. Begin with the end in mind, and put first things first. Those 3 habits have only to do with the individual. So imagine a teenager that grows up being proactive. Now, these teens, I have a granddaughter that graduated high school Friday. What a feat. Those children went through a pandemic learning. I had a grandson, her brother actually graduated 2 years earlier, 2021. They were in the midst of the pandemic. Don't you think they had to be the change they wished to see? So when we look at the news, please stop or minimize it. When we hear naysayers or we hear negative comments, please turn the channel, because we have evidence in our own circle of life that shows us where there is a will, there is a way. And that becomes the habit. That's what habit one is. Pausing. There is a stimulus that is going to, let's use Atlanta since I live there, take you to another place in your mind with traffic. Because it's getting worse. Something's happening. I don't know what's going on. And the response can be, or we can leave a space. We can teach our teens. And if our older self forgot, we can teach this older teen so we can be the people we want to be. And habit two is putting in that space what we prefer. And my space giver is usually peace or happiness. When we say that, then we put first things first. So my next response can't be to this. It's got to be to what I put in the middle and let that unfold. We're doing that every day as a kid. We go and watch kids play on a playground. They go play, they fall down, they get back up. They see a little person that's alone, they go talk to them. Sometimes we see a bully on the playground. We see what happens with the bully, too. Sometimes they get bullied back, or sometimes we walk away. That's back to all the character events we heard just now. If we have strong character, then it takes more courage not to hit back than it does to hit back. Because I believe in the law, LAW, what goes around comes around. So if we're putting negative out there, we're going to get it back. So looking at the habits, we said habit 1, 2, and 3 are personal to us. We go from a dependent stage where we think we depend on how traffic is going to be to have a good day. We don't. Matter of fact, the universe can change that you don't even have to be in traffic. A lot of us ended up working from home permanently after the pandemic. I actually worked from home before that. So when we're looking at those, we go from dependent to independent when we're proactive, begin with the end in mind, put first things first. If we can be independent, that means we can stand on our own 2 feet knowing that a power has us. Doesn't mean we have everything in place. These graduates that are going out into the world just finished on Friday, they don't know what they're about to do. Some are going to college, some are going to other careers, but I bet they're not worried about it. We're going to teach them to worry about it. Let's not do that. Let's not make that a habit. That's what becoming a highly effective adult does. We remember our teenage years that we didn't know what was going on either when we walked out into the world and said, here we are, world, let's do this. So that means habit 4, we think win-win. Doesn't mean a scoreboard at the football game or the tennis match. It means if I win, you win. If we can walk in the world that way, happiness, peace, kindness, it all exists. Most of us think win-lose. I have to win and you're gonna lose. You're gonna live. You're gonna live. Imagine the world walking around, we're gonna lose. What we say is so, correct? So we're going to walk around, we're going to win, we're going to win. This is a win-win world. So I add to that, begin with a win-win in mind. If we can think win-win, then that means we can seek first, habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. We are always so often, get me, get me, get me. We have to get each other. We don't have to agree with each other. We just need to agree with God and law. And if we're in agreement with God and law, we're all going to show up in the right place at the right time. Habit 6 is synergize. Synergizing is a football team, the cheerleading squad, the Unity Church of the Mountains. That's synergy. It takes all of us to make this happen. I have not seen one movie where the credits almost last as long as the movie. I'm kidding. But I mean, the credits are. Have you ever noticed the credits in a movie? And people think Tom Hanks did the movie. If Tom Hanks didn't have all those people helping him, would be no movie. I say his name, but Jim Brown actually made his transition. I saw that getting ready this morning. He was awesome. Now, as a teenager, he saw himself playing football. Did he do it? He did it. And then he started acting. There was a movie he was in called I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker. I don't know if anybody ever saw that movie. It is one of the funniest movies on the planet. So he moved from one thing to another. Do you know that his youthfulness lasted probably until the moment his breath stopped? That's us. Let us be forever youth, forever young, the teenagers. And habit 7 is to help us do that. That's sharpen the saw. I actually wear a little saw on my bracelet to remember to take care of myself. You take care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, and then social emotionally. That's the people you let come in your circle. A lot of illness comes because we let others in our circle who are not well. They're not thinking win-win. They're thinking win-lose. But there's a hidden agenda sometimes. They smile and they have your back. It sounds like, feels like, tastes like. And then they spit it out because it don't taste right, smell like, see right. So we are to stay in tune with our mind, body, and spirit. This is our Trinity. This is our kingdom. And if we can teach our kids to stay in tune with that, we have effective adults. So anywhere in our lives, you older teenagers in here, let's remember to consider these things. This is in the proactive chapter. 5 Shorts chapter by Portia Nelson. There's a hole in the sidewalk. I walk down the street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to get out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe it. I'm in the same place. But that isn't my fault. It still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It's my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. Now, that's what our teenagers do. As the people, we shouldn't be falling in that same hole again and again and again. That's back to the habit. So, do we grow up? Do we see people that might be in 60-year-old bodies that might be 15, that might be 12, that might be a baby? It is evident in our behavior who we are. It's in our actions. That's what habit 3 is. First things first. We don't have to talk a lot. If you notice, the first habit is like, shut up. You know, you want to, in the hallway, they stepped on your sneaker. Don't, shut up. Don't say nothing. But the first thing we want to do is get them back. Let's go after that. They did that on purpose. We really don't know. They could be having a bad day themselves. They didn't even see you. But here we are, reactionary. McFarlane USA is a 2015 movie, an American sports drama. I like sports movie because sports seem to have a tendency to show you what unity can look like because of coming together. The quarterback has to come together and all the other players and offense and defense. So in this case, the film is co-produced by Walt Disney. I like the fantasy and magic of it. Based on a true story from 1987. Cross-country team. Kevin Costner was the coach, Jim White, of a school of predominantly Mexican Americans. And in that movie, these kids were working the fields before they went to school in the morning. Right outside of that was a prison. So they were already setting these kids up from the fields to prison, which they didn't see education beyond high school. But this coach who had a temper himself, he needed some proactiveness if you've seen the movie. So he got sent to the armpit of the world. This is how he saw it being down there. I think he still lived there if he's still alive. Because what happened in that first year of him arriving, of having a sordid career himself, he changed the lives of those boys because they changed his lives. That was teenagers still growing up, in my opinion, because his temper was getting in the way. It cost him moving and moving and moving until he was almost in Mexico himself. But they won the championship, just to spoil the movie, if you haven't seen it. And they won it their first year, and every single one of the 7 runners went to college. No one in their family had ever been to college before, and they all ended up being landowners, teachers, writers, in the Air Force. I mean, their lives just gangbustered. And the ones that live locally still run with the cross-country team. Now, that shows me the epitome that we are effective teens growing into effective adults, effective people. It's up to us to pass on proactiveness, affirmations, our actions speaking rather than our words. I think the book that you'll be seeing later, Birds of a Feather, is my testimony of staying in prayer. That's what this effectiveness is prayer. It is always saying to that power, that law, that thing that you know drives you, that makes you the beauty you are, you wouldn't be here without it, that we are forever to be that childlike and believe in it. Never get too old to believe in something better can happen. We get so, well, I'm going to just age gracefully. I'm going to age happily. How about that? How about not aging? How does that sound? Oh, I like that one. That came out. That's not even on the paper. How about that? Because if you see the goose down there, as I wrap up, as a facilitator of the habits, it's funny, my book is called Birds of a Feather. This is what all the 7 habits facilitators got for graduating. A goose and a golden egg. This is not the golden egg. My 7-year-old granddaughter was an infant at my house, and that egg has gone missing. I cannot find it. So we have some eggs down there, and this is like a shaker. But the image of this is that we're the goose. And if you know that story, they tried to kill the goose and get all the eggs at once instead of taking care of the goose that lays the eggs. You're the goose. Every teenager, every child, every person on the planet is unique. There's no goose like you. There won't be another one when they chop you up and eat you. Let's let them not chop us up and eat us. We're going to take care of ourselves. God, do you see the birds flying? They take care of themselves. You don't see them running into each other. Nature is like that. God takes care of us. So if we want to keep producing Our habits are how we produce. Daily, I have an opportunity to put out a message called Putting First Things First Daily. I do it on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And now I've added a laugh in a lesson. And today's laugh is, why do hummingbirds hum? Because they can't remember the words. And today's lesson is, what is best for you? What keeps you giving the best things, the time and energy you want to give? Are there too many good things getting in the way of the best? And if you don't understand what that means, doing good is good, but doing your best is better. Even in your lowest moment, if you do your best, guess what? You're going to get up. And you're going to get up knowing that you had the power in you that came from somewhere else that got you up. And we want to make that a habit. My friend Julian, that Noah is now swimming with in the ocean. Because Noah's not ashes, but my friend was ashes, and I'm not sure whether they're going to spread them there. But this is one of the songs that I'll close with that they played at his memorial service that I give to every teenage heart that's really a teenager, or we've been a teenager for decades. I hope you dance. I hope you never lose your sense of wonder. You get your fill to eat, but always keep that hunger. May you never take one single breath for granted. God forbid love ever leaves you empty-handed. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens.